The shipping industry has a global commitment to adopting best practice, working to the highest health and safety standards. We all undergo rigorous training so we understand the risks and we have the protocols, procedures, and barriers in place to mitigate them. However, we all do things that we know are not safe. This can be because we've always done it that way, or that's what everybody else does, or that's the way it's done locally. Over time, we just don't see the risk and therefore don't challenge it. We call this collective normalization because we all do it and it becomes common practice. For example, mooring. We all know mooring lines can break, yet we have people working in the vicinity of such high-tensioned rope. We think we are safe because we mitigate the risk by drawing up snapback zones and other workarounds. But is it really safe? Our aim is to safeguard against complacency, raise safety standards, and get everyone to do their part. One area where we need to pay particular attention is when navigating in narrow channels. We are now going to look at an incident that is based on real events. This has been recreated using volunteer staff at H.R. Wallingford's facility in Oxford, United Kingdom. A tanker was on ballast passage to its next port for loading cargo. En route, it would have to navigate a long, narrow channel. Its departure from previous port had been delayed by nearly 10 hours due to bad weather. As a result, the charterers had amended voyage orders for the vessel to arrive a day later at the pilot station for the narrow channel.
Chief, got a minute?
Yes, Captain.
Is everything ready on the port side for the pilot?
As they neared the pilot station, the weather was poor, wind speed was high, more than 30 knots, and visibility was approximately 3 nautical miles.
This will be your first time actually taking the con in this channel, won't it?
Yes, I've been here many times before, but the first time I will be taking con will be this time.
Okay, excellent, no problem. So currently we're here at the anchorage, so the pilot would normally board us there next to that void channel entrance. So we'll need to slow down to about 6 knots at that stage.
Port Control called all vessels planning to transit the channel that morning, asking if they were willing to proceed at their own risk.
All vessels are requested to proceed at their own risk.
They also advised that, due to strong winds, the pilots would not be boarding in the usual position. Instead, they would board inside the breakwater.
The pilot will not board at the normal pilot station, instead adjacent to the breakwater at the channel entrance.
This was common practice in windy conditions.
Yes, this is Oscar Garcia. Message well received. Over and out.
Well, that does add another challenge to things, doesn't it? Weather conditions are pretty borderline this morning. I think we're going to have to make a decision. What do you think, Chief?
Yes, Captain, with the winds so high and we need at least 10 knots to keep the vessel at the center of the channel. Natasha, what's the visibility like?
Well, visibility remains poor and I can't see it lifting. If anything, it's getting worse. Visibility is 3 miles.
3 miles, okay. And what about the weather forecast?
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking great, is it? Tomorrow's looking even worse.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to be delayed 2 days if we stay here. And we've got a lot of work to do at the next port. I've taken ships larger than this through the canal in similar weather conditions. How about the rest of the ships that were due to enter the channel today? Are they all going in?
There's a large container ship just in front of us, and that's going ahead.
Okay. Oh, yeah, she's just entering the void channel now. Actually, she seems to be coping with the weather conditions quite well. I think I could handle it. All right, Chief, you want to find the bosun and prepare the anchors?
Yes, Captain, I'll go ahead and for anchor stations forward, I'll take the crew with me, no problem.
Okay, great.
The vessel entered the channel, and from that point on, they were committed to the transit. Sometime later, the vessel reached the pilot station, and the 2 pilots, as was the practice, came on board.
Okay, let's slow ahead.
Slow ahead.
By now, visibility was down to less than half a nautical mile.
Captain, why did you enter the channel in these weather conditions? We wouldn't have done that.
Well, surely the question is, why did the port control not inform us of the restricted visibility?
But it's your call.
It's your decision, Captain.
When we last saw the vessel, the pilots had just joined. Let's see what happens next. the weather hadn't changed. If anything, it had slightly deteriorated. Due to these conditions, the passage plan for the transit through the channel required the vessel to sail at full ahead maneuvering, a speed of approximately 9 knots. This was necessary to maintain sufficient steerage to control the vessel's position in the channel against the effect of the strong wind.
Captain, are these pilots always so quiet? Is this normal?
Yeah, that's the way they work. Seriously, they're always like this. I know they don't talk much to the team, but they up and down this channel all the time. They know the channel like the back of their hand.
Okay, Captain, okay.
You'll get used to it.
Okay.
Let's just let go. Let them get on with it.
Okay.
Over the next few hours, the vessel continued on its way through the channel without incident. The master stayed on the bridge throughout and did not wish to leave due to the weather conditions and the relative inexperience of the chief officer. He'd now been on duty for 10 hours. Around lunch, the master eventually took a 50-minute break for some rest and food and handed over control to the chief officer.
Pilots, so I've just handed over to my chief officer. I need to go down and take some lunch and have a bit of a rest. I'll be back up shortly, but he'll take care of you for a while.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Captain. Mr. Pilot, are you okay with the course?
Yes.
How do you know? You're not even looking at the radar.
We do this every day. We watch with our eyes.
Okay.
The master returned to the bridge shortly before the vessel approached a critical point on the passage plan. This was when the vessel would leave the narrow single channel as it widened into a lake before splitting into 2 narrow channels. At this point, the speed of the vessel would increase because of the open water in the lake. And indeed, the vessel's speed began to increase from around 9 knots to an eventual speed of 11 knots. Over the next 30 minutes, the master twice asked one of the pilots if he would like to reduce speed.
Pilots, do you think we should reduce the speed a bit?
Don't worry. Once we reach shallow waters, our speed will reduce in the narrow channel. Anyways, if we go aground, our speed will be 0. Sorry for the joke, but we know these waters.
That's why we prefer to use our eyes.
Even when the visibility is down to 5 cables, you'll use your eyes.
Over the next few minutes, the pilots gave some small alterations to port.
Port 4 degrees.
Port 4 degrees, heading 144, sir.
You're going too fast.
They were just enough to suggest to the bridge team that the pilot was about to alter course correctly. However, unnoticed to the pilots, the vessel had already passed the point where they should have turned to the next course in the narrow channel. Eventually,
Pilot, you need to come out of port!
Everything's fine, it's under control.
Captain, that's not what the radar is telling me. We've crossed the wheel over point and we are exiting the channel now. We have to do something before it gets too late.
Pilots.
Not worry, Captain. Everything under control.
Yes, 125.
You see that red buoy up ahead?
What?
That
What
one.
boy? Which one?
The green one's over
Where?
there.
Hard port!
Sure. Hard port.
6 knots now.
Harder port now. Good move. Harder port. Harder port.
Go port! Go port!
Harder port.
Stop engine!
Speed 0.
Stop engine!
Stop engines!
I told you how to port.
looking at the incident, you've probably identified several areas that contribute to the safety of navigation of a vessel in a narrow channel. So let's now look back and analyze the incident to identify what barriers failed and what caused them to fail. The two main causal factors were the navigation of the vessel by the pilots, which led the vessel to a position of danger, and the momentum of the vessel, due to excessive speed, which continued to take the vessel aground after corrective action was taken. Some of the other causal factors were bridge team interventions were late and not effective due to collective normalization, leading to the belief that pilots know best. Passage planning was not as per recommended practice. Pilots were not using navigational equipment. Adverse wind and visibility conditions and the lack of adequate weather forecast. We want you to go home safely every day. We want you to protect our neighbors and the environment. Nothing is more important. During your discussions about this incident, you have probably identified several things you can do or change to improve safety of navigation on your vessel.